Good afternoon, everyone. Our next session is on research by postgraduates by Dr. Anil Kakunje sir. On behalf of Department of Psychiatry, Pratima Institute of Medical Sciences and Karimnagar Psychiatric Society, it is with great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed chairpersons, Dr. S. Sirisha ma'am and Dr. Pavan Kumar Kulkarni sir. Firstly, I have the honor of introducing Dr. S. Sirisha ma'am, Professor of Psychiatry, Institute of Mental Health, Hyderabad, Deputy Superintendent, Institute of Mental Health, Hyderabad. Ma'am worked as HOD Psychiatry, Usmania Medical College, Hyderabad from 21 to 23. Ma'am has 25 publications under her name. Her area of interest is PG teaching and forensic psychiatry. Now I would like to introduce our esteemed chairperson, Dr. Pavan Kumar Kulkarni sir. Sir is a professor and head of the Department of Psychiatry in Chalmeda Anandrao Institute of Medical Sciences, Karimnagar. Sir is also an assistant treasurer, Indian Psychiatric Society. Sir is honorary secretary of IPS Telangana State Branch from 21 to 23. Sir is also a governor IPS Specialty Section, Private Psychiatry 21 to 22. Sir has 10 publications under his name. Now I like to request Dr. Anil Kakunje sir to come onto the stage. And I request our esteemed chairpersons to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
It's in fact a privilege to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Anil Kakunje sir, who is a professor and head of the Department of Psychiatry at Yenapoya Medical College, Mangalore. And he has 16 years experience as a postgraduate teacher, and he is currently guide to 7 PhD scholars also. More than 100 publications to his credit, and he also have many awards, has bagged many awards, Young Psychiatrist Track Award from World Association of Social Psychiatry, and Distinguished Young Teacher Award from IPS Karnataka chapter. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you here, sir, and over to you, sir.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Audible? Audible? Yes, good. So, this is an era of technology, and I'm sure one of the standard guidelines or instructions in any of the meetings is stay away from your phone, keep it in silent mode, let it not disturb others and so on. But then always there is a craving to check your phone, correct? So, we will have a presentation of a different level now. I want you to use your phone because I don't want you to see something else on your phone. So, you can focus on the presentation using your phone so that the presentation will be closer to you. We can interact together using your phone. So, I want you to log in using this pin what I am telling. So, take out your phone, in the Google type kahoot.it or KAHOOT space IT, KAHOOT space IT. So, all of you can log in, you can see the presentation as and when it comes, and in between I will ask some questions which you can respond using your phone. So, it will ask a game pin, kindly type this pin where it asks for game pin, then it will take you to a page where it will ask for your name. You can type your name and we all will be on the same page. So, the entire presentation you can see live on your phone. Yes, so these are the people who are joining, so all of you can join. So, KAHOOT space IT on your phone and press the link. It will take you to a page which will ask for the game pin, that is the pin number which you need to enter. In between, if you log out anytime you lose connection, you type this pin again, you will come to the same page. And then it will ask for your name, and once you ask your name, we will be starting as soon as everyone joins. Right? Yeah, so we have a lot of people here. Shall we start? Ready? The topic given to me is on psychiatric research for postgraduates, but then research for postgraduates is mainly thesis. The research what you do outside other than PG thesis is very little minimal. So, probably majority of the talk will be related to your thesis presentation, and once you do a research, the outcome is actually publication. So, no one will sit with the research, ultimately outcome is you put it to the world using the publication. So, part of the presentation is what Dr. Shahul presented initially on the first one, is publishing your first paper, which is actually your thesis paper, that is part of it. The other part is basically how to do PG thesis and how to do it effectively and some tips related to that. So shall we begin, chairpersons? Okay. So psychiatry research for postgraduates. So next about 30-35 minutes we will have an interactive session. So right side photo is actually of my student, this side is mine. So the student and the thesis guide, I am starting with this because he did not publish his thesis. So I thought this will be a motivation for him to publish the thesis. So first we will start with few questions. I need to know in the hall how many of you are in which year of post graduation. So are you seeing the question on the box on your phone? Yes? Do we have an audio in this? Yeah, if you can connect audio the effect will be better. So you can see the poll. So maximum number of people are in the first year of post graduation, starting is almost about 26 of them, 10% of the audience are almost in the second, and about 9 people are in the final year and few are other professionals. So this is the rough breakup of the audience here. Now next is people research, we need to know at what stage is your research. So is your thesis protocol approved by the ethics committee? That is the final regulatory stage. Yeah, so good. So many of you have, it is approved by your ethics committee, that means you have started the process. So majority of the thing what I am speaking may be related to this group. So all of you have started, that's a good thing. So next I need to know, have you completed your thesis? Because if you have completed, the next step we will have to think how to publish. Okay, so almost 92% have not completed. So I am at the right platform and for the right audience, so that you need to learn better about how to do thesis and what is remaining is done effectively. Next question is, why to do a research study during your PG? The option is, few people say I do out of passion, few people say make a world a better place, few people say I add knowledge, and few people say as part of the curriculum. So as expected, majority of them do it as part of the curriculum. So that is where Shahul initially started. So it is part of the curriculum, it is mandatory, so we end up doing research. And the rest of the options actually don't add up actually. So if you say it's adding for knowledge, but then passion and making world better place, which is actually should be the real reason to do research, takes a lower point. So I think we need to improve upon from this mandatory part of the curriculum to something which is a passion, to improve knowledge and so on. So that brings us to the presentation per se. Now that we know majority of you are doing thesis and doing for as a mandatory requirement, how to do it better. Many people confuse between these three things. What is a thesis, what is a dissertation, and what is a project. Many people use it interchangeably also. Thesis predominantly is a master's degree say work what you do as a research, but then dissertation is predominantly for a doctoral degree, for a PhD degree, and project can be part of a course. It could be a small one like an ICMR project, it could be a small short topic what you do, or it can be a large ICMR related study also. So it can vary. Thesis is generally studied on an existing topic. You do something little different, something to improve upon the existing thing. But then dissertation, which you actually is a PhD related topic, you look at something novel, something new. You form a thesis, you form a idea and then try to implement and see how it works. Project can be anywhere between these three. Thesis provide research experience and defense only to the examiner. You need to defend your thesis only to the 4 examiner and your guide. no one else comes in between your thesis and the defending thing, because no one can question you apart from your guide and the 4 examiners or maybe an external examiner reviewer. People who review the thesis is very less, but then dissertation is a public defense. So any people, any person in the university are called for the last public defense, and you will have to defend your dissertation. For a project there is no defending thing, you just need to give it to your funding agency or someone who you have to submit the project, and that is it. The time taken for thesis, generally what you are given is about 18 to 24 months effectively to complete. Dissertation is a larger project, PhD project, and a smaller project can be anywhere between say few weeks to months to years. Thesis, for majority of you I am sure this is your first research project. Dissertation, people have prior experience, and projects can vary anywhere in between. It could be an MBBS student doing project, it could be an MD student doing project, or it could be a faculty project. So basically that is the difference between these 3 items which people need to know before knowing what is research. Yeah. So next we will see these were the differences. Now what are the similarities between these 3 once you are doing thesis, dissertation and project? So seriousness and effort, no doubt about it. Whatever you do, there should be some amount of seriousness and passion associated with it. Require analytical, academical, statistical research knowledge, which I am sure many of you are getting trained, and you had a session in the morning on the statistics thing. So whatever you are doing, any of these 3, you need to have some kind of research knowledge and some skills related to statistics to implement the research. Any research you will have to follow the ethical practices. Obviously no plagiarism, so you cannot just cut copy paste because it takes away the essence of research. And finally, the similarity is all of these 3 are part of some kind of program. It could be an MD program, it could be a PhD program, or it could be a degree program where you do a project. So these are the similarities. Now moving on to research per se. Majority of you, the moment the word thesis comes, I think after the initial honeymoon of your initial joining, when after the 3 months the research project starts, many people think the headache or the dragon is around. So it is like your fight against a big animal, so you need to actually worry about your thesis. Way back when I started my thesis, my seniors used to say, thesis is like feces, you finish it fast. If you have it, then it is like a chronic constipation, so it will really trouble you. And probably it was true also, because those days probably the importance for research was less, people were doing it only for the mandatory thing, and it used to be tough to satisfy your guides, and thesis was more like an extra workload over and above your clinical work. Now the next is majority of the research projects, people say it is written over blood, sweat, tears and lot of coffee. So it is over and above your regular work. So you finish your daily clinical work, then you sit and you are not in a mood, then a whole lot of problem starts, and then the irritating work of doing research for a postgraduate, and people keep on nagging about completing. There is a different timeline, you cannot keep on continuing postponing thesis for a long period of time. So all these things take a big toll, and sometimes you are not in a mood, you have to do a lot of other academic activities along with research, which actually acts as a big stress to complete the thesis. Now to start with, so people who are in the initial phase, so what are the various phases about and how to go about selecting a thesis topic, that is where you actually start. So take something which is quite practical and something which is achievable. So your project or research is not to get a Nobel Prize, your idea is to get the MD degree first. So take something which is more practical. You should have interest in the topic both for you and the guide. You cannot take a topic which your guide is not interested, because then he will have problems. So the ideas should match between you and your guide. There should be some cases available in your setting where you are taking the samples, because unless there are cases, completion will be an issue. So you will have to look at interest, then the availability of cases, the goal should be achievable, the aims objective should be achievable, and most importantly to do a simple PhD MD thesis, better thing is, if you ask me, better to do it within the department instead of using other departments help. Many people do interdepartmental or say going it on the community and do it. It is more difficult for a MD student to get such things done. Interdepartmental clashes, interpersonal issues, all these things come into play. So selection of thesis should be done in such a way that you are able to complete it within about 1.5 years time. Yeah, so I think Dr. Shaul initially covered a bit of this. It should be, the topic should be feasible, it should be interesting to you, it should be novel to such an extent that you should be able to complete and publish it, it should be ethical, it should be relevant to the field what you are doing. So these are the things which you need to think of before selecting a research topic to study. This is one place people have not started looking for research topics, or beginners or people who want to do one more study. There is a website called as Shodh Ganga where all the research topics of various subjects are put in one website or one page. So you can type your field of interest and look at already done thesis topics. And how to select topics is, one thing is you can look at their research, the other place how you can look at is you look at the limitations, or you look at the future directions. They would have done a study, but then they would have said this would be a better way, or this will be a future thing to be done at a future next level. So you can look at those articles, those already available MD theses or PhD theses to look at the next level studies where you can select a topic. So that is one place where you can select topics for beginners. Do we have the audio here? Audio is connected? Okay. So the next is approval. So you find out the thesis topic. Next step is getting approvals at various levels. So initially you should have the guide's approval, then you have the statistician who has to approve, then you have the department people who have to, the guide and department people who have to get it cleared. Many people have the board of studies, and you should have the scientific review board, ethics committee, whole lot of regulatory clearances, and each stage is a hurdle. Take it from me, and especially in my institute, each stage will take roughly about 4 to 6 weeks. So you submit to SRB, the scientific review board, they take about 4 to 6 weeks. You send to ethics, they take another 4 to 6 weeks. So roughly the entire thing you see takes about maybe 4 to 6 months to complete all these regulatory clearances, and these stages take more time if it is a bigger project. Coming to the next level is research protocol. So what things should be covered in the research protocol? So you have initially the title which you have selected, you have the background, and have a brief review of literature about what is actually done till now in that area, particular area. Then you have the aims and objectives. I think our statistician covered it very well. So how to differentiate between what is aim and what is an objective. So aim is the final goal, is actually the aim, because many times when you ask PGs, they get confused between aim and objective. So aim is the final goal what you want to achieve. Say for example, I want to reach from Mangalore to Karimnagar, that is the aim. My aim is to reach Karimnagar. But then objective is from Mangalore I go to the Mangalore airport, from Mangalore airport I go to Hyderabad airport, from Hyderabad airport I drive to Karimnagar, that is objective. So objective is how you achieve the aim, it is in various steps. So you can achieve these steps at different levels. So objective 1, 2, 3 you can have at various levels, and to achieve the aim. Then you have the hypothesis about what actually is the study about and what you are trying to achieve and plan. Methodology, I think a statistician has covered about sample size calculation, the PICOT which he said about setting, the inclusion exclusion criteria which should be included in the methodology, the time duration in which you are planning to study, the tools which you are planning to use, the Gantt chart or the timeline which you are planning to do the study and stick to the timeline. You should have the planned statistical analysis, and finally you have the result analysis which should include in the discussion the strengths of the study, the limitations, and finally the references. So you should have an initial synopsis covering, except for the discussion and results part, rest of the things should be in mind in the initial protocol, so that how you are planning to achieve this. So it is very important because it is like a foundation for a building. So you have a right plan, your final job is only to achieve that plan. So you should stick to the plan, then you are done. So it is very helpful if you have a sound beginning in the sound plan in the beginning. Otherwise you end up in trouble, because if your initial protocol is not okay, then you cannot change the inclusion exclusion criteria and the whole study is in a mess. Yeah, so now where all these things are done by the department, there are people to help you and so on, but then the major problem is many students try to fake the data. So MD thesis, I asked you directly, do students fake data? It is anonymous, don't worry, so it won't be published. So majority, when I ask these such questions to audience, at least about 60-70 people say there is some faking in the thesis data. It generally happens because the idea is fake, but then maybe about 40%, 30%, 25% is sometimes made up based on the available data. A part is fake, and then what happens is you are not comfortable with publishing or in presenting the fake data because you are yourself are not confident about the data. So my advice, sincere suggestion or advice to you is, do not fake. Only then you will be confident of presenting the same thing on a public forum or presenting or giving it for publication. Majority of the data which is fake gets end up only in thesis, because then you are also not happy about doing the entire thing. You are not confident of facing the public because you have faked it. So first thing is, do not fake and be sincere with your data. In case you are little short of the data, that is still fine. You can put in the limitation, talk to your guide and see that you put only the available true data. So that is point number one, do not fake data to get a good thesis. Second point is where people generally miss is meeting the guide. So even my students, when I start talking about thesis, they generally are evasive, they generally don't come forward, because sometimes it is little uncomfortable and you have not completed up to the mark. So students don't go to their guides to meet, and suggestion is you meet your guide at least once a month about your thesis, exclusively to talk about your thesis, give the progress and see that the guide knows what is happening with the project, and in case there are some difficulties, there are some hurdles, they will give some tips or some suggestions to see that it can be somehow modified. Say there are some issues with the sample collection, he can talk to the colleague, he can talk to the department people, or he can talk to the people who can matter to see that the hurdles are removed. PGs don't generally talk about thesis to guides, and that is the second place where people have problems. And finally in the end, it becomes too late to sort all these such issues. Next is the feeling regarding about the student and the guide and the whole system. Can you tell what is shown in this picture? At some point, always majority of the students feel, this is how they feel about the guide and the whole system about doing projects. They generally think the guide is heartless. So they feel there is no heart and he doesn't understand me. The whole system is such that no one has any heart, because they feel they are only suffering. So it is not something which is heartless, but then the system, you are not actually moving with the system or getting tuned to it or moving in line with it, and that is why people end up feeling that people around are heartless. Next thing, tip is how to complete it early is, as soon as you finish a part of the thesis, try to give it to the guide for corrections. Say for example, you finish your review of literature, you finish a part of the review of literature, whole of review of literature, give it to your guide, he can see it, he can go through it, give some suggestions, so that you are done with the half of it. Because review of literature, reviewing, the study need not be completed, you can do it much ahead. So in your free time, the postings where generally people are posted to the district residency program, community programs, or where you are in some other area where night duties are not there, and such places, you can finish your review of literature, finish it, give it to the guide, so that the guide also gets time to go through the whole thing, because guides also have lot of other work. So in 2-3 days you give it to the guide, it becomes difficult for them also to go through, and many of the errors sometimes go missed. So this is one place where students can improve and finish part by part and give it to their guide, so that thesis can be done a little better. But the ultimate happiness is once you complete the thesis. You ask me, I think majority of you have passed the book, 6-7 books you finish, and take the sign, that is one of the happiest day, because you feel that half of your MD goal is achieved by completing the thesis. It is true. I mean, you feel nice that a book in your name has come. So writing the acknowledgements feels nice. People put it on social media, and everyone in the department knows that he has completed thesis because it comes in the WhatsApp group. So these are the good things about completing research. But then that is not the end of the story. So you have completed, that's good, that is nice. You have fulfilled a major mandatory criteria, but then it should not lie only in the book. So what should be done is, the thesis can be published to see that you stand at an advantage. I think Shaul covered it in the beginning. So you can be differentiated from the rest. So many MD candidates come out now. So job, if there are 5 MD candidates for one post, how do they differentiate? All are MD people. So how do they differentiate is based on your research work, based on what thesis you have done, whether you have published your thesis. And in our institute, one of the mandatory questions for all interviews is, have you published your thesis? And if you have done 2-3 publications, by the time you apply for a SR post, I mean, that is a welcome thing, and probably the chance of getting selected is very high. I am sure majority of the other institutes also follow the same thing. So your CV looks better, you can overtake others based on this criteria. So the chance of getting jobs, joining PhD courses, joining PDF courses becomes high if you have published your thesis. Now the question is, you can publish your thesis, but then you can do it at a little later point of time. Majority of people I know, they say, anyway, getting to SR post may not require a thesis publication. So you can publish it from SR to AP, you need a publication. From moving to SR to AP, you can publish that time. So it will help in my promotion. So I will keep it pending. So I can do it from SR to AP post, I will do a publication. But the problem is, a lot of time is gone in between. The chance of acceptance reduces because your references are sometimes old. You again need to modify the thesis. You are not fresh with the things which are there in the computer. So guide is not around. If guide is around, he may also help in getting it published, because his name also will come in the thesis. So it is always good you finish off your thesis at the earliest, so that a good paper comes out, a fresh paper comes out at the minimal time, and you need not go through the whole exercise again, adding references and going through the same review of literature. It is the era of publish or perish. So a lot of people, graduates, are coming around, and the only way to differentiate, and research is getting more and more wider say recognition and acceptability. So people are expecting that you should have some research, and the outcome of research is publication. So whether you are doing research, people know only if you have papers, and this is the era of publications. So if you are in job, especially academic job, publications are mandatory. So it is better you start things early. The other happiness for a young person is, your name is permanent in literature. So you do a study on, say, a case report on some area. If it is a rare one, next person doing will have to quote you. Say for example, you have Kishan et al, or you have Puli et al, Puli SK et al, and seeing that name, someone else quoting your name, it actually improves your self-esteem, and it's some kind of motivation factor to get into publications and research. Now coming to submissions to journal. So next one is, I think part of it is covered in Shaul's presentation about how to get it done, get a good paper. So you cannot change the whole methodology of the paper, but then put it in a good format where it gets accepted. So put it as per the journal guidelines, a concise version. You cannot put the whole thesis into a paper, so it has to be concise in such a way that it is acceptable to the scientific community. Headings are different, because many times review of literature there is no heading of review of literature in a original research article. So you will have to modify in such a way that all the parts of a thesis is covered, is gone into the research paper. So see that those headings are corrected, and many times people forget to change the points as put in the thesis. They write 2.1, 2.3, 2.4 in points in the thesis, and copy the same thing into a publication submission which actually looks odd, and you know the thesis has been cut, copy pasted. So such things can be avoided. Selection of a right journal is very important. So once you are done with the writing part, so you need to put it in the right journal, so you can take help of your guide, your faculty in the department to select the right journal. I think at an initial stage you need not go to a very high indexed journal, because a PhD thesis getting published in a very high indexed journal is quite rare or minimal. So it is okay if it is to a little lower indexed journal or a journal which is unindexed also, but then an initial publication will help you to boost your, say, motivation to do a lot of papers. But then mind you, it should not be a predatory journal. Predatory journal is where they demand money. The initial submission only they ask for some money, 3,000, 5,000 you give, and they say 100% sure of your publication. So you submit, within 24 hours, 48 hours you will get an acceptance letter. So those are predatory journals. So avoid that. The moment I see someone with a predatory journal in their CV or in their resume, I generally reject then and there, because it is easy for you to differentiate if people have published in any predatory journals giving money. So such things should be avoided, because sometimes it becomes negative. It serves a short term probably your need, but then on a long term it is going to create more troubles. So a short term need is you get a publication and you finish off your MD degree with some paper, but then on a long run it is actually a negative. So don't get into such problems. And predatory journal, if you are unsure about whether the journal is predatory or not, you can take some help of a senior person to differentiate whether they are predatory or not. Easy way is majority of the psychiatry journals which are non-predatory are from the psychiatry, say, societies, boards, or large institutes. So such journals are generally genuine and which do not take money. So a paid journals are majority of them which ask for money for submission itself are generally predatory. There can be few exceptions. So before submission you go through the journal website. So it takes roughly about 6 to 8 weeks for a standard journal for, say, the initial review and peer review process. Promotions, they generally ask for a DOAG indexing minimum, but then for a PG publication, I feel it is not important for even a DOAG indexing. It can be an initial, say, motivation factor to just have a paper. It can be a good journal without indexing also. But then don't pay money for publication, and see that your thesis gets published at the earliest. So submit as per the format, the headings, font size, reference, a nice covering letter to the editor, why it is important, what is unique about your study. Have a nice catchy title, say something from South India and something which is unique, something which is related, which the journal can relate and so on, and it can help in say easily getting the attention of the editor or the reviewers. Now next few tips about how to get, say, editor's attention or the reviewer's attention in initial publication. Have you heard of this ID? ORCID ID, ORCID. How many digits does it have? So ORCID ID. Yeah. So many people say 4, 7, 8, 10, 12. The right answer is 16. So ORCID ID is an ID which is Open Researcher Contributor ID. So it gives a unique number. It's like your Aadhaar number. It gives a 16-digit number for a researcher. The importance is because, say for example, Anil. So there can be many Anil. There can be Anils even in this room. So a paper comes like Anil et al. You don't know which Anil has published. So ORCID ID gives a number so that it identifies the number with the person, with the institute, and gives a list of his research activities. So it helps. The advantage is if you have this ID and put it in the, say, submission portal, the moment I look at this ID, I know he is a little sound researcher who has an ID, who has some knowledge about research. So it actually helps in moving up your, weightage of a paper compared to a person who does not have this ID. So we get a lot of publications for my university journal without this ID also, we accept that, but then someone, if there are authors, several authors with this ID, then the chance of me taking it to the next stage is probably higher. So this tip is, so for people who want to put their research at a little next level, you can just create ID, anyone can create this ID, you have this ID, in the submission portal it asks for this ID, you put in the ID and it helps in improving your say image as a researcher. So you can fill this in the space provided when during submission and it creates a better impact. So that is other tip. Next few journals where you can try to publish freely, we have several national journals, our editor is here which tops, you have the Indian Journal of Psychiatry, then you have various other indexed psychiatry journals which are of national repute, the Social Psychiatry Journal, Indian Journal of Private Psychiatry, Industrial Psychiatry Journal, Indian Journal of Geriatric Mental Health. So someone doing on geriatrics can look at something like geriatric mental health, Journal of Indian Association Child and Adolescent Mental Health. Then you have the next level zonal journals, but then few journals are actually of national repute. We have two past editors here. So Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine, Annals of Indian Psychiatry is the West Zone journal. You have the Journal of Mental Health and Human Behavior of the North Zone. Eastern Journal of Psychiatry is from the East Zone. So various zones also have journals. All these journals are free and you can send papers to all these journals and good theses can be accepted in such journals. The next level is the state journals. So you had a release just a few minutes back, Telangana Journal of Psychiatry, Archives of Mental Health, which is again a very good index journal. You have Psychiatry Spectrum, Kerala Journal of Psychiatry, Journal of Clinical Psychiatry, Indian Journal of Mental Health and Neurosciences from Tamil Nadu, Orissa Journal. So many states also now have started their own journals. So it's a good opportunity for postgraduates to start giving your thesis to many of the state journals. It is still okay, but then they are not predatory. It is good, there is some visibility and you get a happiness of getting your thesis published. So the key takeaways from my presentation, so first complete thesis at the earliest. So see that you complete thesis at least about 6 months before your final exam, you get sufficient time to read and see that you do your first research experience in a good way, sincere way and do not fake it, keep meeting your guide and see that it gets completed in a nice fashion so that it's the first experience is good so that you take it forward. So after finishing your thesis, you take it to the next level as the research experience moves well in your career. Do it sincerely, it will help in a publication and generating the spirit of research and publications. Have publication as a goal. So each year, sometimes I keep, okay, this year I will try to have about 3 to 5 papers. So at your level you can have at least one paper once in a year. So it would be a case report, it could be a case series, it could be a original article where you are part of, and that actually helps in moving forward your say research career. It does not mean that you should do research only if you are in academia. You can do research even when you are in practice. You identify good cases, you can tie up with the institutes which are doing research, give your contribution and have a good paper out of it. And foremost, especially for youngsters, do not publish in predatory journals, identify good index journals for your original article and do it at the earliest before your senior residency actually starts according to me, so that you take it to a higher level during your faculty presentations. So at the end I want to know from the audience, what are the chances of you doing a research publication? You can actually score, you can type it, it is anonymous, so there is, your teachers are around but you need not worry about them. So 35 answered, so let us see. So, oh, that's great. So there are about 34% of the people who say there is extremely likely of publishing their thesis and having. So you have about 20% scoring 7, 20% scoring 8, 3% 9 and 34%, about one third of the PG saying that they are extremely likely to publish their thesis. It's really heartening for me to see and probably heartening for the organizers also. So that brings to the end of my presentation. So I thank Ipstsb, Karimnagar Psychiatry Society and PIMS for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts about research during PG days and PG publications. So if you have any questions, you need not stand up and feel awkward sometimes. So it is easy, you can type the questions, it will appear on the screen and I will try to answer it. I made this change because sometimes I felt that PGs want to ask questions, but then sometimes they feel embarrassed that what will others think. So no one will think anything, you can type the question, questions will come, I will try to answer it. For seniors, any comments, suggestions, welcome. We have 10 seconds left. So once the questions come, I try to answer the questions and that will finish the presentation. So thank you. So yeah, I will try to read the questions. How to publish case report and case series. This is the easiest one for the postgraduates, especially because you are the first person and you are the person who generally interact with the patients the most. So identify good cases, rare cases, cases which are little different from the routine. Try to discuss with your faculty in charge who is seeing the case whether it could be a possible case report or a case series. Case report is generally one case. Case series has a little higher weightage where you have 3-4 cases of similar nature, you present it together. So that is probably the easiest one for the postgraduates to start with and start your research say publications. So that's a good point and I think PGs to start with, first year PGs also can start writing case reports. So that's something which is motivating. Informative and interactive session, someone said thank you. Great presentation, again thank you. Types of publications, yeah, to start with you have case reports, case series and then your original article which you can make out of your PG thesis, and there are other various types of publications like say review articles, various types of review articles, then you can have a systematic analysis, meta-analysis. But then to start with probably PGs can look at case reports, case series and original papers. Maybe review article if you can group in together, few people along with your faculty can be a part of a review article. So these are the areas which probably you can try to target for your initial publications. And there are various other type of publications like a viewpoint article, commentary article and maybe say editorials and so on, but that is probably at a very higher level. Should I do a simple topic or a mind-blowing complex topic? Probably something in between is what I would say. So your primary aim is to get an MD degree. So your aim is not to get a Nobel Prize. So do it first, something which is achievable. I think a mid-level topic, discuss with your guide and that should be good. And do it in the right spirit and right way so that you feel good about doing it. That is also important. Why aren't predatory journals red flagged? The problem is commercialization and money involved. Anything which involves money is going to stay. So it is like internet can have any pages. So tomorrow I can also start a web page saying I accept articles and start a predatory journal. So these are dubious things. So it is difficult to control all these things. And the last question is salami technique to publish right ethically? Definitely no. Taking anything from anywhere else is absolutely wrong, and putting others' names just to satisfy your HOD or some other faculty in the department is also wrong. It is not ethically right. Catering passing MD, is there any upper limit to publish thesis? Absolutely no. There is no absolutely upper limit, but then the chance of acceptance decreases with the passage of time. So I published my 2000 year PG thesis. The articles, everything will be of the 90s, and generally the reviewers will definitely pass a point that all are old references and review of literature is old and so on. So it becomes difficult, and the science also would have moved so much that it becomes obsolete. So it is better to do it at the earliest. So I think that brings us to the end of my presentation. So thank you all for your patient listening. Any comments from any seniors, any questions? Welcome.
Sir, the applause itself indicates how best the session was conducted. Thank you, sir. Now I open the forum for any comments or questions. One or two quick comments or questions. If yeah, Sujit sir.
I thought that would be injustice if when I didn't say that it was a very good presentation in the sense that incorporating technology and involving the audience, and I have personally learned from it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I thank organizers for giving me this opportunity, and I also congratulate organizers. This is an exclusively CPD done on research. This is first of its kind, to the best of my knowledge. And I also congratulate Dr. Anil Kakunje for his lucid presentation. And he is a very familiar name to all our PGs. Your 1000+ MCQs is viral among our PGs, sir. They are all going through it for the upcoming quiz in the post-lunch session.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, sir.
Chandana sir, wanted to. Sir, thank you once again, Anil sir. Over to organizers, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil sir, for very fun and interactive session. Now we'll plan for lunch. I request those who are participating for quiz, please stay back for a screening round. Firstly, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. K. Ashok Reddy sir, Professor and Head, Department of Psychiatry, Sri Venkatasai Medical College, Mahbub Nagar. Founder Director, Government Medical College, Mahbub Nagar, 2015 to 2018. Indian Psychiatric Society Election Commission Chairman, 2021 to 2022. Past Honorable Secretary and President, Indian Psychiatric Society, Andhra Pradesh State Branch, Indian Psychiatric Society, South Zone Branch. Areas of interest: community mental health education, rehabilitation of mentally ill, use of IT in psychiatry practice. Now I would like to extend a warm welcome to Dr. K. Narayan Rao sir, past Treasurer, Indian Psychiatric Society, Telangana State Branch, President, Indian Medical Association, Khammam. Dr. Sujit Sarkil sir, we welcome you onto the dais, sir. I may now pass the baton to our esteemed chairpersons, kindly inviting them to introduce our esteemed speaker and grace us with their opening remarks.
So from the morning we have learned about various procedures, how to publish and how to prepare the research work. And the present speaker now, that Sujit Sarkar, is going to talk about what is the present scenario of psychiatry practice and what will be the future. So unless we know the present platform, we cannot plan the future. So what is available now, what we can plan for ourselves, and what will be the future psychiatry in general. Probably he is going to update us in all these areas. And probably as an Indian Journal of Psychiatry editor, we can also give some tips to the young psychiatrists how to get published easily in Indian Journal of Psychiatry. Probably you can help them also in that. I'll request Dr. Narayan Rao garu to give introduction about the speaker.
Good afternoon all. Thank you organizers for giving me this opportunity. Dr. Sujit Sarkar is a well-known speaker and is a well-known guest for Telangana Psychiatric Society. It is not first time he is in Karimnagar. Dr. Sujit Sarkar is a professor in Institute of Psychiatry, Calcutta. He is honorary editor, Indian Journal of Psychiatry, assistant editor, Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine, and Indian Journal of Private Psychiatry. He is a past editor of Bengal Journal of Psychiatry, Eastern Journal of Psychiatry. He has more than 70 publications in national and international peer-reviewed journals. His areas of interest include suicide, research methodology, OCD, child and adolescent psychiatry. I request Dr. Sujit Sarkar to start his presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Ashok Reddy, sir, and thank you, Dr. Narayan Rao. It is my privilege to be here, and again I thank Dr. Sai Krishna and Dr. Kishan for having asked me to come and present here. Actually, this topic is basically more of a experiential kind of a topic, which is of greater use to maybe young psychiatrists or maybe some senior psychiatrists also who have undergone this journey of Indian research, because it actually gives a kind of an overview regarding the current status and what we can do or to improve the status for the future. However, I will try to make it meaningful for the young students also. Basic idea is that what exactly is the malady or what ails the current status scenario of Indian biomedical research in general and psychiatry research in particular, and what could be done to mend the ways. There is no single solution to it. It is a multi-pronged approach, but at least we should be able to identify the areas and maybe we can all work upon it in our own small capacities. So, the current scenario of the Indian research on mental health, as you can see, just a minute. Biomedical research, so although India seems to have done very well in terms of economic development and all, when it comes to research, it still lags behind many a country, especially the Western countries, China. Significantly it lags behind in all aspects of biomedical research. And what are the indices of lagging behind? Usually the number of publications are less. The publications are also in relatively low impact journals. You will not find too many publications in journals like Nature, Science, and in case of mental health like JAMA Psychiatry or BJP or AJP. Rather, it would be more of low impact journals. So this is one major problem. Another issue, this has been plaguing Indian biomedical research for the last 20 to 30 years. Even before that, there are papers which have done analysis of published studies from India, and it still remains that the lion's share of the publication is done only by a handful of institutes. So if the country has 700 institutes with psychiatry departments, it would be around 40 to 50 institutes which would be accounting for 60 to 70% of publications in biomedical research. So this institute specific, focused and skewed thing remains a problem. So we are not able to generalize research across the country, and that is an unfortunate thing that is plaguing our research. And obviously the last line, it has always been mental health has remained a low priority area and suffers from lack of funds. So what are the major hurdles that come in the path of good research for all of us? First of all, the people who will supervise research, or even the students, they have multiple roles to play, and teachers have to, we have teachers here, have to double up as administrators, clinicians, they have other responsibilities, and research comes as a poor last choice, because if you are not doing research, probably you will not be penalized, or probably you will not have to face any lack of raise or lack of increment. So it does not harm you if you are not doing research. So obviously it is pushed down low in the priority list. Many state-run institutions, in my own state also, and I guess here also, many state-run institutions allow private practice beyond duty hours, and obviously private practice is lucrative because it gives immediate benefit in terms of financial benefits. Everyone has to run a family, and so that also has been hypothesized as one of the reasons that takes away valuable time which could have been devoted to research. So this is another area that has been kind of focused. Poor exposure to research work in UG and PG days. Our teachers, us, we all are included, have always been brought up with clinicians as role models, who would, we would always like to know, be like this person. He's a very good doctor, he was a very good clinician. So basically emulating a good clinician has been one of our major areas by which we have grown up, and suddenly we cannot shift role as a research mentor. So probably we have never wanted to be a good researcher. It has always been an additional thing, a co-curricular thing for many of us. And suddenly we have been asked to supervise research, supervise thesis, supervise PhD work. So probably we will not be able to transmit the enthusiasm among the youngsters, because it has never been our own priority. This is number one. And number two, as Dr. Dennis Xavier was saying, that if I am weak in methodology or the statistical rigor of research, I will be very unlikely to expose my soft underbelly in front of my students. So rather I would like to brush it under the carpet, avoid it, and focus on areas of my strength. So these have been some of the important factors. And in many states, in my own state also, we have frequent transfer policies. So ultimately, even if you have a dedicated or a motivated researcher or a mentor, maybe after a point of time he gets unpredictably transferred, and that leads to lack of motivation to work. So there has to be some amount of stability in a particular institution, in a particular place, for at least a certain duration, at least 3 to 5 years, so that one can plan projects, do research, and motivate youngsters. As I have said, poor knowledge of statistics and research methodology leads us to often be dependent on other specialists. And as a result, it often leads to unethical practices, as was being told by others, like data fudging. If you are not adept at research properly, towards the end you will try to fudge data and bring up a paper in some way, or other unethical practices. So basically this all comes from lack of knowledge and understanding of the subject, which probably many have not been taught properly. And also there is administrative, lacks. Administration seems to be reluctant to promote research. If you go to an administrator and ask that I need to buy an RTMS instrument which is going to help, or as an adjunctive treatment or an add-on treatment for someone with depression, the administrator will ask that how is this going to give immediate clinical benefit? Is it going to be life-saving? So when it comes to a race with other specialists, where there are other instruments which may apparently seem to be life-saving, we often lose out as mental health professionals, and it is often brushed under the carpet. So this is another administrative issue which often plagues better research in peripheral institutes mostly. Central institutes obviously have different ways of being funded. So what are the problems at the initiation of research? So when you are starting a research, whether it is at the level of a thesis or whether it is a PhD work, so what are the main problems? Most of our institutes have poor record keeping facilities. So if you have poor record keeping, it is very difficult to do something at the level of file review or any kind of a retrospective chart review. Plus, you don't even have an idea how many patients of bipolar you have in a particular day. So you cannot plan studies properly. So right at the outset, at the level of record keeping, there is a major flaw. Issues at the level of conceptualization of the study, from selection of topic, feasibility and methodology, again because of poor exposure of many of the guides for this. Often, cross-sectional hospital-based studies are chosen because of feasibility issues and additional clinical responsibility. See, this is where the interest of the, apparent interest of the PG teacher and the PG student conflicts with the interest of the editor of a journal. As Dr. Shahul was saying, subsequently Dr. Anil was also saying, you have 5-6 disorders, we have 10-12 scales, burden, and quality of life. So you combine a few and you get an immediate relief. Okay, fine, cross-sectional study, the PG is relieved, I don't have to do much work, the guide is relief. But this becomes a non-novel, non-publishable work wherein you have wasted your energy, the guide has wasted his energy, the patient has devoted time without any benefit, expecting that probably you are doing some work which will benefit the patient community in the long run. Ultimately, you are doing injustice to all the efforts just because you knowingly or unknowingly chose a topic which will practically never get published in a journal which will give some visibility to the research work. So all your efforts are wasted. So right at the outset, if you are doing some work, some homework, some rigor in methodology and choosing good work, it is highly likely that this will pay off in the long run, because there are many people who go on with their thesis and develop subsequent interests later. Another very common problem we have is training of the raters. See, in poorly staffed institutes, maybe there are 1 or 2 teachers who have to take care of PG training, they will have to do their administrative responsibilities. They don't have time to train students how to do rating on YMRS or for that matter HDRS, PAN-SS. See, these rating scales, most of these rating scales form the basis of our data collection when we are doing it on typical psychiatry patients. Untrained raters, most of the raters, what they do is when they are doing it as a part of the thesis, they make 2 major mistakes. One is that they always think that they will simply read the instruction like a manual and apply it. Invariably, studies have shown it is a very wrong thing to happen, because ultimately it will reflect wrongly on your assessment. You have to undergo proper training with the help of, if there is inadequate staff, you get trained. There are other places where you can get trained and actually do inter-rater reliability. What happens is, for a layman, he will invariably try to rate the psychopathology on a higher scale. For example, if you have done PAN-SS, and if you are an inexperienced rater, invariably you will try to go for the higher number in psychopathology. It has been shown across various studies. So right at the level of rating, we are making mistakes and drawing wrong inferences. This is number 1. Number 2, 99% of the times, the person who is doing the thesis, if it is about an outcome, they themselves are rating it. So obviously their rating will be biased towards a positive finding. So blinding of the raters should be done as far as possible. For example, I am doing a study on the effect of RTMS on depression. My friend is doing a study on the effect of ketamine on depression. we both are using HAM-D scales, so we can simply choose to rate each other's patient. At least that will ensure some degree of fairness in the findings. So these are some of the very basic things. If it is done at the level of starting a thesis protocol, probably this will lead to better outcomes and better publishability of the work that we are doing. Now comes, once the research has started, what are the other problems that you face while we are doing the research? The residents are not taught how to record data, how to manage variables, in which software data should be stored for future analysis. I will tell you, in many of the institutes that I have inquired, obviously I am not talking about NIMHANS or AIMS or PGI or CIP Ranchi, leave that aside. Talk about most of the institutes, many residents do not know, or they have never been taught where to store the data. So what they do is, they ultimately ask a few seniors who will never acknowledge that they have limited exposure. So they will say, okay, fine, put it in Excel. In the end, as Dr. Xavier was saying, that finally when you have the data in Excel, you don't know which variables you have put correctly, how you should have coded the variables. So in the end, you cannot undo what you have done. So finally you catch hold of a friend, senior, there are professionals, apparent half-baked professionals who say, okay, bring me the Excel sheet, I will do the research, I will do the analysis. And in the end, these are the individuals with whom you land, and finally the report or the results that come out are definitely fallacious, although that may not reflect apparently, because you do not know where you have art. Mistakes have happened in smaller places, in smaller increments, and ultimately this has given rise to a completely fallacious outcome. So, going through a crash course in data collection and basics of research methodology right at the beginning of the thesis would stimulate interest and help in better outcomes of collected data. So, this is a single day workshop. BCBR was, the capacity building exercise that Shahul and team are doing, that is a 3-day workshop. So probably earlier exposures during your thesis career, during your MD career, to these kinds of workshops will probably make you more attuned to what should be the right method of doing research, no matter whatever amount of time you are putting for research, and that will also help you in your future career also. And obviously the last line, who does the analysis, who prepares the resultant thesis, and how much of it is supervised. So if the entire thing is unsupervised, the quality remains as expected, completely, unsupervised quality. Now comes what happens after completion of the thesis work. You have done in whatever way you could, you have got it signed. So now, if you have really not put much of an effort in getting the thesis, nor have your guide put much of a supervision, so ultimately none of you will develop interest in getting the work published. It is just like, it is an addition, it is like a bitter pill to swallow. I have done my job, I have got my MD degree, so now I don't need to do anything anymore. So let it remain. So the motivation to publish is completely lost. So often requirement for departmental promotion governs the need to publish, a ritual that needs to be completed somehow. And if the only motivation to publish is departmental promotion, and you have not taken any effort to write a paper properly, so you have only two options. You have less time, so you either go for a predatory journal, which was told before, whatever you give, as long as you pay the money, they will publish it, or you ask a dedicated colleague of yours and ask him for gift authorship. Boss, you are publishing it, please put me as a second or third author, मेरा promotion का काम हो जाएगा. So these are the two shortcuts usually that is taken. So obviously with these kinds of efforts, naturally you cannot expect good quality of research to come out. So I will just talk about a few fixes that have come up, some policies that are being implemented, certain things that may be done at our level, and probably things can be much better than the way they are. It has been found in studies, I am talking about the same institutes which publish more papers, it has been found that their clinical workload is no less than the institutes which publish less. It has been repeatedly shown in publications. So probably a clinical workload is not the right excuse to give when you are talking about low publication. It is probably lack of priority. It is probably that there for some reasons it is not in your priority list. That is why you are giving clinical work as an excuse. So this is one fact that has come out. Institutes allowing private practice should do so strictly after duty hours. So if I am supposed to stay till 4 o'clock, it should be till 4 o'clock. So if my clinical work finishes by 2 o'clock, maybe a couple of hours we can devote to research. So this is at the administrative level obviously. Transfer policy, as I have already said, should be clear and transparent, very difficult to achieve. It is utopic, but it is one of the suggestions that at least a person should stay in an institute for 2 to 3 years so that he can do dedicated research if he wants to. Students should be exposed to research at UG level, and thankfully there have been certain changes in the UG CBME curriculum which mandate certain amount of research exposure. The new CBME mentions that a student should have some idea of research and should be able to conceptualize a research on own. ICMR also provides research grants to students. So there are certain theses. So if you write a good proposal and send it to ICMR, ICMR chooses to sponsor few theses every year, and those sponsored theses will subsequently have a greater chance to be published, and the person can also have a decent research career. So ICMR is encouraging to reward certain good quality theses from across the country if they have sufficient novelty. The new PG-CBME curriculum also mentions that the PG trainees should be well versed in research methodology apart from carrying out thesis work. So this is important. So actually a PG as per the latest curriculum should be able to conceptualize and carry out a small research work and get it published. So that is the amount of hand-holding knowledge that he is expected to get during the course of his 3 years PG training in psychiatry. So this is important. PG-CBME also talks about monthly research meetings in which we can have two purposes. In monthly research meetings, PGs can discuss research proposals, those who are interested. Those who are already carrying out thesis work, they can update their guides. As Dr. Anil was talking about updating, they can update their guides about their research efforts, and the guides can give them counter feedbacks regarding how they should proceed further. So it will, monthly research meetings will serve two purposes. It is already mandated in the new PG-CBME curriculum. Another suggestion is that when thesis is being done, there are 4 guides, A, B, C, D, and they have 2 each under them. So we have 4 people guiding 8 students, and they all write their thesis by thesis proposal by talking to their guides and submit it to the ethical committee. Now the institutional ethical committee is bombarded with 100 thesis proposals, and they do not have time or effort to undergo or to go through each and every proposal, because they presume that if it has been signed by the guide, it is probably of proper methodology. Moreover, ethical committees do not have time, they only look at the ethical aspects of research, not the methodological aspect. So one major proposal has been that every department, rather psychiatry department of every medical college, should form their own scientific review committee. For example, a psychiatry HOD, if he feels that I don't have enough knowledge or expertise, can bring in the HOD of community medicine or pharmacology, who apparently has more knowledge about scientific methodology. They create a scientific overview committee, and that committee supervises the thesis protocols and modifies it accordingly. If this can be done, this will lead to better methodological rigor of the research and will ultimately lead to better quality research, better quality paper and publication in relatively higher impact journals. So formation of scientific overview committee or review committee of each department across the country in psychiatry is going to be definitely helpful. And obviously some other things we rarely know. We keep on talking about clinical trials, yoga on depression and then RTMS on this, and then when you see that those papers are submitted, they have not been registered in any clinical trial registry. See, basically clinical trial registry is nothing like a rocket science. It is simply a registry wherein you will have to submit your proposal and say, I am going to carry this amount of intervention on this group of patients at this institute for this period of time. Basically, you have to give your protocol and submit it to that registry, and the registry will give you a trial number. This actually means that it is in a public repository, and registering a trial as per ICMR is a must in order to get it published. So now, if my best friend also comes with an intervention and tells me that it's a very good study, but I have not got it registered in a trial registry, I will not be able to publish, because tomorrow someone else will shoot a letter to the editor saying that, sir, how could you publish a trial which has not been uploaded in the registry? Trial registry uploading takes 5 to 10 minutes. It is completely free. So we should all develop a habit of getting all kinds of studies where there is slightest of intervention, whether it is psychotherapy, whether it is RTMS or whether it is a drug study, to get it registered in a clinical trial registry of India, and then we proceed for the work and the publication. Remember, retrospective registration is not allowed and it has been stopped. So we must develop these basic habits at the outset so that we don't have to suffer later. And obviously subjecting the thesis for plagiarism check. We all are aware of softwares like Grammarly, paid software. There are free softwares also, but at least some effort should be made to see that the material is not grossly plagiarized. So talking about what could be done during the data collection and publication phase, regular supervision, training in rating scales, proper recording of collected data and publication. This is another thing that has been suggested, that you make the publication of the completed thesis mandatory within 5 to 6 months, as long as that person or as long as the resident is attached to the institute, either as a senior resident or in some capacity the person has to come to the institute, because once one leaves the institute, one, the accountability goes, and secondly, the priorities also change. He may be trying to set up a new practice, he may be attached to some place which is far more away from the city, he may not feel adequately motivated. So better to ensure a system wherein the resident is kind of pressurized to at least submit it for publication within 6 months of completing the MD thesis or completing the MD exam. So this could be one major step in ensuring better publication. Collaboration at all levels. This is very, very important. See, Dr. Anil was talking about difficulty in dealing with other departments, but if you look at small institutions, maybe I can carry out some blood related work with a biochemistry department. Similarly, they can also collaborate with us. It gives two advantages. The novelty of the topic increases. There is a chance of having a broader horizon. This is number one. Number two, it actually gives rise to better interdepartmental collaboration, and maybe the other person can help with the analysis also. So probably going a little beyond the department would broaden the horizon and help in collaboration. This is one. This is interdepartmental collaboration. Then we talk about inter-institute collaborations. That is also not big thing to happen these days. For example, there are 4 psychiatry departments in Hyderabad. So rather than having a single institute data collection, there can be 4 institutes of Hyderabad who decide upon a certain sample size and they collect hospital data, because as such hospital data has much less value. But the moment you combine it from 3 to 4 institutes, preferably from a little diverse geographic location, it automatically assumes value. And nowadays people are talking about interstate and inter-country collaborations also. But at least to begin with, we can have small collaborations with other departments and also with other institutes of the same state. This is the minimum that we can do and plan in order to increase the impact and visibility of our research. Are we doing anything for our full-time private practitioners to make them motivated for research? Because a huge wealth of clinical data, many of our seniors are sitting here who are into full-time private practice, who have wealth of clinical data, but maybe for 2 reasons. First is lack of time. Second is, even if I have time and decide to publish, I will have to write it up. Then there will be 20 questions asked, why have you done like this? It is simply lack of awareness of the protocol which dissuades many private practitioners from actually writing many interesting things that they see. Probably institutional tie-ups, so someone closely from an institute which is close to the private clinic who is interested in developing his CV can tie up with a private practitioner who is also interested in showcasing his clinical work into research, and this can lead the way forward, because a wealth of clinical data is lost by not tapping the private practitioners. I am talking about standalone private practitioners, not the ones who are again attached to big institutes or hospitals. So this could be another major way forward to improve the research prospects in psychiatry in our country. Finally, at the level of policy making, this is very important. Faculty promotion and recruitment should involve greater emphasis on research performance. This should not just be restricted to the number of publications, but should also involve quality of publications, in which journal you have published, how many projects you have undertaken, whether they are intramural projects or extramurally funded projects. These have all been nicely put up in one report. It is known as Sneha Bhargava committee report, and there are suggestions that this report may be implemented for faculty promotion. In fact, certain institutes of national importance are planning to implement it in their promotional activities, so that this will help them to further motivate their faculties to get into research. So it is not just 2 papers in index journals and finished. It has to be what kind of publication, what type of journal, whether you are the first author or the last author. So all these things will come, whether you have ever headed a research project. So all this will add to my CV and will help me in my promotion and professional growth. That would be one way of motivating an individual to engage in proper, decent and strong or good quality research. This is another part, proper allocation of funds separately earmarked for research at the institutional level, not just through projects. Today we have crores of rupees given to big institutes and also lots of money lying with ICMR. So just imagine a person who is a teacher or maybe a young psychiatrist at an institute. The moment first he doesn't know that such a money is available. Next, if he has to get hold of that money, he has to write a project, get it approved, and he may not be very good in writing for the projects. So as a result, what happens is he is demotivated to apply, and again only a select few who are extremely adept at writing project proposals, only they send it for their project, and it gets ultimately the project goes to a few people of the INIs. So ultimately again the research at the peripheral level suffers. So probably allocation of funds which should be already decentralized. So I decentralize this much of fund to medical colleges of Telangana, rather than forcing a few doctors from Telangana that you apply to ICMR, then if your project is found suitable, then you may get it. So if it is coming from the top to down, probably that will motivate people to utilize the fund into research rather than they having to go and beg for it. So this will probably help in decentralizing funds for research. And everything about China is not bad. So China model in research is very important. They have achieved, there are many pitfalls, but they have achieved two major success by following two things. They have actually allocated more and more funds at government level to research, and they have very strongly incentivized or rewarded the researchers. Even there are researchers who have got huge monetary rewards for carrying out good research work. So they have pumped in money effectively, and they have financially incentivized research and researchers, and that has made them go much above our country in terms of published research. There are certain questions raised on the quality, but by and large they are far ahead. So incentivizing research is important. You cannot expect a poor man to sacrifice everything in his life and just to go for research and again not to be rewarded. So there has to be a way of incentivizing it. There is another interesting thing that has come up. As I was saying, that most of us have grown up as clinicians, clinic being a priority and research being just a poor cousin. So PGI, Chandigarh, Manipal Academy, they have come up with integrated MD PhD courses. So a person who at the level of MBBS decides that I would like to take up a research career, as Ashok Reddy sir was saying, that with the increase in the number of professionals, there will have to be at least 10% who will have to ultimately choose a research career amongst many of us. So those who are interested in research can actually apply for these integrated MD PhD courses, wherein they get both the degrees. They get a graduation in post-graduation in medicine, different branches of medicine, and also complete a PhD, and this whole 5 year gives them equal weightage of research as well as clinical degree. So this may come up as a model for the future, already being done in some of the institutes. And creating a repository for possible research and thesis topics. I think this is important to all of us teachers. I was recently talking to Dr. Rajesh Sagar of AIMS. So he was saying that very recently ICMR has called a meeting wherein teachers from all specialities were asked to give few topics of interest, research areas of interest, and by collecting all the topics and they put their own inputs. So what they identified as, these are the topics and these are the priorities of research as per the Indian scientists, and as a result they are going to create a huge repository of topics. So when I get my PGs next year, I may be getting a repository of say around 1000 topics on psychiatry, from which I can conveniently choose depending upon the feasibility and accessibility of resources, and we can actually take up that thesis topic and give it to my PGs. So this will also help in removing the dearth of new topics. So the question of novelty will probably go if I get 1000 novel topics and get a chance to choose from them. So this is a major development that is taking place. And we must plan collaborative research work between the big institutes and the small institutes so that they can handhold younger researchers and make them do better. So rather than restricting the knowledge and publication to only the INIs, maybe there has to be some kind of an handholding effort between the two. And finally, what can be done by the Indian Psychiatric Society? So just a brief overview. Improving research interest and capacity building through research workshops. South zone is doing very well, other zones are lagging behind, but it has to be done. Such initiatives can also be done in virtual mode. Already it is being done in virtual mode in many of the cases. Reviewer training workshops, this is specifically for improving the quality of the journals. at national, state and zonal levels of the IPS. It does two things. It improves the quality of reviewers who also become better equipped in research methodology. So if I have 20 reviewers for IJP who are doing review of the journals, they are in the process, their own research acumen is also developing and they are becoming better equipped for research in the future. So if I am developing a base of reviewers, I am also developing a base of potential researchers. So we are already doing that. I think South Zone Journal is also doing that and probably we'll do it more in the future. And as was mentioned, encouraging publication through national, state and zonal journals. We are planning unofficially to build up a network. For example, a journal, an article comes in Indian Journal of Psychiatry. For some reason I am not able to publish it. It could be because of publication pressure. It could be because of too much of tight reviewing system. I can gently suggest that you can try the South Zone Journal or Telangana Journal of Psychiatry. It is also an index journal. You can try out and there is a possibility that your article may be published. That way two things will happen. The researcher will get less frustrated, he will be more encouraged, number one. Number two, the state journals will also be enriched by more articles from different parts of the country and in the process they will flourish. So this is one major step that we can take and we are going to take. And encouraging research by setting up ethics committees at local levels. This is also being encouraged by ICMR. Because a person is staying in a small town where there is no medical college, there is no ethical committee. So without ethical committee permission, he cannot do research. So what will he do? So at least if the local IPS state branch has an ethical committee, wherein a psychiatrist can go and take permission and start a research in his own small town in that state, it will go a long way in encouraging interested people to begin research. So ICMR is talking about increasing the capacity of ethical committees because the institutional ethical committees are overburdened and they often charge money from those who do not belong to institutes. So finally, to conclude, India does lag behind neighboring China and several Western countries in terms of number and quality of research. Psychiatry research is majorly dominated by a few central institutes. Several issues plague Indian research at the level of inception to data collection. All these stages are plagued by various problems, and encouraging research through departmental promotions to funding initiatives is necessary to motivate researchers. So they should be motivated at all levels by reinforcing their promotion, their importance in the department, as well as allocating funds which will make them more encouraged to take up research. And obviously IPS can facilitate all these processes through its own network of psychiatrists in its own way. I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
I think that Sujit has given a lot of insights where we are in the research in our own state. And he has also given so many solutions also how to overcome all the problems. I think it's a very good learning experience for all of us. And probably one suggestion to indirectly has given to IPS Telangana State Branch Editor probably can, and the President, easy total, they can plan together to have independent ethics committee and encourage research even by private practitioners. IPS Telangana State Branch should take it up and set as a model to throughout India. The second thing is about the editor's presentation itself about repository of
Thesis
research
topics.
works. Yeah, probably it will be better if the IPS editor can take up the responsibility and they can take the help of all the reviewers and the head of the departments of all medical colleges in the country to get the titles and then prepare repository and help everyone. It can be from the editorial office of the IPS itself, I think.
No problem.
The country. So with these few comments, we'll open up for the question and answers. Feel free to raise any questions.
So far published. And second question is, have you done any research on schizophrenia disorder?
So I didn't get the first question, sir.
Which is the best research paper so far published of yours?
Sir, my best research paper. There are two ways of looking at it depending upon the journal and the citations. So I think it would be the one which was based on my MD thesis work again, and that was repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation in OCD, and it was published in a journal Psychological Medicine in 2010. And it was the fifth or the sixth paper in the world in RTMS in OCD, because CIP had RTMS almost at the same time as NIMHANS, and there was really dearth of world literature at that time. In fact, actually it got quoted in APA guidelines in 2013 or 14, that particular paper. So in terms of impact, I would call it the best published paper in my career. But again, that ticked all the boxes, as was being told by Dr. Shahul and Dr. Anil. It was novel because it was the fourth or the fifth study in the world. I got it published within 6 months of passing my MD. So the element of quick thinking was there, and obviously I had all the help of people who knew a little better statistics than me. So all this was there, but that is what led to it. And since it was published early, it received so many citations subsequently. Now we have maybe 50-60 on OCD and RTMS. Second question, sir, I didn't. Schizophrenia, sir, no direct paper, sir. No. Not on schizophrenia, sir.
I've come from Apollo, and now they are after us to publish, and they're giving us points based upon, if you have in Scopus, you get 35 points, you get increments, everything being linked to that. That is because they're going for this NIRF rating and for NAC rating. Now, this is a voluntary process, okay, but I think in a way it's good actually. That is going to really take up the quality of research in the institution. As of now, NIRF and NAC ratings are only voluntary. It only depends upon the institutions that are applying for them. Why can't the nation, the medical council also start rating all colleges based upon their, all of them virtually, not just a few institutions are the ones that will give some kind of credit rating system in which research should have a lot of weightage. I think that will automatically make all the institutions to raise their bar.
Sir, it's a very good idea. Actually, there are two ways of looking at it. Either you pressurize the institute or you pressurize the individuals. As I was talking about this Sneha Bhargava committee report. Problem is, if you pressurize the institute, you will also have to devise some form of punishment. Otherwise, for example, if because of low rating, if the institution loses out on funds allocated, then they will stick to it. But in a typical government institute, if nothing happens, then ultimately no one will, stick to it.
I think that Sujit has told us about so many areas from where the bottlenecks are there and the answers also, including the policies, funding, encouragement from the organization. But finally, the main key thing seems to be the knowledge in research and attitude towards research. That will be the key point in all the problems what you have pointed out.
Yes,
I think the knowledge is given now through this platform, and when some attitude changes also has to come from here, which can improve the research in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sujit.
Thank you.